All right, should be live. There was a 1 minute delay, which is really rare. I usually actually end up starting early because I get there quick. Hold on 1 second. You know the drill. Got to promote it. Got to put it on the interwebs. Get people on the stream. Just bear with me here. Post on my Facebook. You know the drill. Now post it on Discord, and then we should be done. All right. There we go. Everything's up and promoted. Now let me get the chat here so I can see you guys talking. And all right, cool. Hello, two people that is on my stream. Welcome to my welcome to my movie discussion live stream. This is the 5th one we're doing. And the movies I'm going to talk about today is mostly going to be movies that I've watched recently. But I'm also going to go in and throw some movies that I just love and want to talk about. So, let's kick it off, why don't we? With Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is a movie I went in blind. When I heard about this movie, I only heard because, you know, the dude, oh my god, how did I forget this dude's name? Quentin Tarantino. I literally just sat here and forgot Quentin Tarantino's name. That's my mood right now, guys. But anyways, Quentin Tarantino. I went to this film because I love Quentin Tarantino's movies. So, what did I think of it? Well, one of the things that stuck out to me immediately when I saw this movie was the impressive set and prop design. You could tell that the people who made this movie put a lot of effort into making this look authentic, 60s, late 60s. And they did a great job. It looks very, very, very good. It really sucks you in to the late 60s. And there were actually moments in this film where I was like, wow, that is really impressive what they did with the prop and set design. So huge props to those people who worked on that because, yeah, wow, it looked really good. It was also a great love letter to the 60s, too, because, 60s, interesting time, interesting decade, and it was a little bit of a nod to, not a little bit of a nod, it was a big nod to the late 60s, and I like that. This movie was also well paced as well. I know this movie did start a little slow, like my mom said. It started a little slow, but it picked up. It was like building blocks. It just kept building and building and building and building, and then it reached that big ending. And so I'd say it was well paced in that retrospect because it just kept getting better and better throughout the entire movie. So yeah, I'd say it was well paced. Also, another thing I loved about this movie were the characters. They were wonderful. I loved the characters in this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt did great performances on this thing. Oh, yes. Everybody's fine except for them fucking hippies. That line was hilarious. I remember that line, but we'll get to that in a bit. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt did great performances in this movie. They really shined in their roles. I can't really think of anybody else playing these characters besides them. They nailed it. Another thing, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie, so this is to be expected. Excellent cinematography. You know, Quentin Tarantino is an amazing filmmaker, so that wasn't a huge surprise to me. The cinematography was great in this movie. Also, another thing about this movie, this actually got a lot of mixed feelings, which wasn't surprising, was the ending depicting the Charles Manson murders, but it was actually turned on its head and made it so the killers were killed. I like this ending because it turned the Charles Manson murders on their head, and it had you tense. It was like, oh my god, this is the night. This is gonna, you got tensed up, and then it just, bam! It completely turned your expectations on you and had a completely different ending than what you would have expected. And honestly, I was laughing throughout the entire ending because they were getting their ass kicked and served to them in the end. And of course, they had that line, everybody's fine except for them fucking hippies. That line, when that line was dropped, I was just dead. I was dead with laughter. It was hilarious. And the flamethrower scene also, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character got a flamethrower and just shot it into the pool, and then that girl screaming, ah! It was hysterical. It was great. It was a very tense ending, but it just was like this big bang in the end, you know? It was like, wow, that's a lot. But it was really enjoyable. So overall about this movie, I went in expecting a great movie because, Quentin Tarantino, and I came out with a great movie. This was a fantastic movie. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. It wasn't a perfect 10 out of 10, but it was a 9 out of 10. And I'd say that's a really good score. So, yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'd recommend this movie. I really liked it. Next up, The Breakfast Club. This is a movie that was really popular in, that decade. The 80s. It was a huge movie in the 80s. And I went in expecting a fun movie, and I came out with a fun movie. I know I said that previously. Went in thinking of a great movie, came out with a great movie. But whatever, I said it again. I went in expecting a fun movie, and I got out with a fun movie. This was a fun movie. However, it isn't a fun movie where it doesn't have boring parts, because this movie did have some moments where I was just like, okay, this is kind of boring. I'm going to pull out my phone while this is happening. But not the whole movie. Not the whole movie was boring. Just certain moments were boring. Also like the setting, where it was just one setting throughout the entire movie. And I like that about it, because it created for a lot more character-focused stuff in the movie. And that's one thing I liked about it. However, it could have done a lot more with that, because the characters are good, but they're not anything amazing. If another movie had their hands on this kind of premise and had it so these kids were in detention or whatever, and did the characters a little bit better, then this movie would have been getting a higher score than what I'm about to give it at the end. But I'm not saying these characters were bad. I'm not saying these characters were terrible. It's just kind of characters. Not anything that you'd walk away saying, wow, those characters were phenomenal. Amazing characters. Wow. But they were good. Just not amazing. And it had its fair share of dramatic and comedic moments, but it placed those well. Like, when the dramatic moments came in, it didn't feel like, okay, that's really weird. Where did that come from? It felt like, okay, yeah. Because it transitioned into those things really well. Like, when you had a comedic moment and didn't immediately jump into a dramatic moment, it kind of eased its way into it. So that's an admirable quality about this movie. It did that really well. Also, the soundtrack, just got to say this, the soundtrack is a bop. You guys, I can sit down and bop to the soundtrack. It is a bop. Just throwing that out there. It's a bop. I mean, you got Simple Minds on the soundtrack, man. Simple Minds. Great stuff. My mom said, I think it's funny that the geeky kid ended up being the best looking out of the whole bunch. Yeah, that's pretty... I don't know much about the best looking thing, but being the best looking one... Alright, sure. Another thing I noticed about this movie, and this was almost immediately, even after I watched it, was it has a strong charm. Even through its negative qualities, even through its kind of weaker and cheesier moments, it's still a charming movie to watch, and I think that's something pretty nice about it, because it's not easy to capture a charm in a movie, and I don't think sometimes capturing a charm in a movie is just unintentional. Like, it can be completely unintentional for a movie to have charm in it, and I think that's what this movie was. It had both intentional and unintentional charm to it. The dialogue in this movie was a mixture of good and bad dialogue. There was some moments of good dialogue where, like, when they were all talking in that circle about themselves personally, you got some serious great character moments through that. But there was also some really bad dialogue, like the gun in the locker thing. It's just like, okay, whoa, all right, whoa. But the dialogue wasn't completely bad. It just had some moments where, that didn't work. But doesn't mean it's all bad. And it is badly cheesy in some parts. Like, there's some moments where you're like, really? Especially the ending where you had the forced love interests. It was like, what? You got the weird girl becoming normal or whatever and getting with this dude. It's just like, what? Where did that come from? That's so forced. Really forced. But, well, you gotta have some love interest, right? I guess. I don't know. But overall, this was a good movie. I'm probably going to have to give this one a 6 out of 10. It was good. Check it out if you want to see a good 80s movie. Want to see a fun movie that's entertaining to watch. That's The Breakfast Club. Check it out. Next movie. All right. Y'all know I am a big fan of Joy Division. I love them. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. I listen to them all the time. So when I heard that there was a Joy Division movie, I was all over that shit. All right, I was like, okay, where's this movie? I gotta watch it. I watched this movie on Daily Motion. Yeah, if you haven't heard of Daily Motion, it is sometimes a godsend because it has like full episodes of TV series and movies on there and stuff. So Daily Motion's cool. But anyways, I watched it on Daily Motion and I was I was impressed by what this movie did. I didn't go in expecting an amazing movie, but I got one. One of the biggest things, one of my favorite things about this movie is the excellent performance by Sam Riley. He perfectly embodies Ian Curtis. He even gets his little details down of his charisma on stage. He does it really well, all right? Like, this is like, he deserves an award for this. Like, he nailed it. And not only is his performance great, but I think everybody's performance in this movie is something to admire. And also another thing I love about this movie is that it works well as a great biopic and also as a story of life, because you get the music biopic typical things in there, but you also get this very deep and emotionally gripping story of Ian Curtis's life along with it. And it's really great to see that it achieved both being a successful biopic and a successful story of life. This movie is really good, guys. Also, I love the black and white tone they added to this throughout the entire movie that worked really well for the tone of this film. I honestly don't think it would have had the same effect in color. It's honestly that powerful of an effect. It just worked perfectly for this movie. That was a great choice. Whoever had that choice to put it in black and white, congrats. That's a really good idea. Also, the performances of the songs on this are great because they did like covers of Joy Division songs in this movie, and they all were really good. Like, I sometimes go back to watch the performances from this movie, just to jam to them. They're good. Also, the cinematography was really good. Compliments the tone of the movie. Overall, I'm going to have to give this one a 8 out of 10. I love this movie. And no, I'm not being biased because I love Joy Division. Because I had my complaints about 24-hour people and their depiction of Joy Division. But this one depicted Joy Division in a great way. And if you're a fan of Joy Division or music in general, definitely check out this movie. It is worth your time. Okay. Control. Next up. Oh, this is a classic, guys. A Clockwork Orange. Yes. Yes, I love this movie. This is one of those movies where on first watch you're like, what the hell did I just watch? But in retrospect, it comes at you as a very good movie. This movie is disturbingly thought provoking because we get this character of Alex, and he's such a sadistic, he's such a tormented guy. He's he's violent and abrasive, but it's weird because throughout the movie he does so many detestable things that's just like, okay, that's terrible. But by the end of the movie, you sympathize with him at the end of the movie, and that is incredible that the movie is able to make you feel those emotions over this character. And that is honestly a great example of amazing writing and great performances, because the dude who played Alex in this movie did an incredible job. It's just so intriguing and really well executed performance. And I also love the great unravel of karma upon the main lead, because he did these detestable things in the beginning. I'm not going to list them here because they're really bad. Just watch the movie. And it just all like whacks back at him right in the face. You get that major karma at the end of the movie. And that's entertaining to see as well, and they did it really well. Also, Stanley Kubrick. What else do I gotta say? It's Stanley Kubrick, so the filmmaking, the cinematography, and the camera work is going to be phenomenal. And it was. It was phenomenal. It was surreal. It was colorful. I just love the wide shots in this movie as well. You know, Stanley Kubrick is a genius, and I will say that over and over again. Stanley Kubrick is a genius, and it shines in this movie. It is so imaginative and creative. Throughout this movie, it just shines. Also, another thing I noticed about this movie is that it has a lot of classical music in it. Despite this dude being an absolute psychopath, he still has a love for classical music, which was kind of bizarre. But the music kind of creates an uneasy depth throughout the movie, because you're like, this is kind of weird that you're hearing like Beethoven over these disturbing scenes. It creates an uneasy depth, and it kind of really encapsulates the movie really well. Overall, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This movie's a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Straight up. Love this movie. This is the next movie I'm going to talk about. Oh boy. If you haven't heard about this movie, where are you? It's The Godfather. Alright, it's The Godfather. This is the movie that pretty much everyone loves, because it barely does anything wrong. I can't really think of anything wrong it does. That's how good of a movie it is. I mean, it's got it all. It's got exceptional cast. It's got exceptional acting performances. The acting performances are top notch too. Like, geez, the characters are amazing. The development and the depth is incredible that these characters are given. And the acting, you got these incredible actors on this movie. You got such great talents in this movie playing these characters. You can't really go wrong with that, really. You just really cannot go wrong. And the writing is really good too. It has a wonderful narrative throughout the entire thing. And the camera work and lighting was also amazing. You know, pretty much everything about this movie it was great. Right down to the little details. And the camera work as well was also fantastic. Also, this movie is filled with iconic dialogue that you can quote all day in just about any conversation. It's insanely memorable. You have to try to forget this movie, because after watching this movie, I haven't forgot about it, and it is rewatchable as all hell. Overall, once again, this movie is just a straight up masterpiece. I don't know what else to say. 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen The Godfather, you are majorly missing out. Majorly missing out. So this is going to be kind of a weird transition, but after talking about The Godfather, we're going to talk about We're going to talk about the SpongeBob movie. SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water. I wanted to talk about this movie because I didn't talk about it yet. So I just want to go ahead and jump into talking about it. I was so excited to see this movie. I've always loved SpongeBob SquarePants ever since I was a little kid. So, you know, hearing there was a new SpongeBob movie coming out in the theaters, and also not only that, the first SpongeBob movie was actually the first movie I saw in theaters as well. So this was definitely a hype moment for me. I was like, oh my god, I cannot wait to see this movie. And honestly, I didn't go in with the feeling that it was going to be great because Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg. Bruh, I said Steven Spielberg. Oh my god. Okay. Forget what I just said. Forget what I just said. All right. I did not expect it to be great. All right. But it was because, you know, Steven Hillenburg, he was not on much of the production of SpongeBob SquarePants after season 3. And season 4, he was on. I think he worked a little bit. I think he did the Krusty Towers episode. If correct me if I'm wrong. He did come up with the idea for the Krusty Towers episode, but he didn't write it. But anyways, Steven Hillenburg was not involved with the production. But when I heard he was going to be involved with the production, I was like, all right, this is going to be a good movie. And it was. But it's not as good as the OG. You know, you can't really beat the OG SpongeBob SquarePants movie. That's a classic. Absolute blast of a movie. You can't really beat that. But this movie got close, I think. And when I first saw this movie, I actually did think it leveled up to the original movie. But in retrospect, no, it does not. And this movie does have hilarious scene after hilarious scene. It's consistently funny. It doesn't really fail in the comedy department at all. In fact, I would say it succeeds in almost every way when it comes to comedy because it is really funny. It's funny for all ages. The comedy is for all to enjoy. Also, the animation looks really good, even though it's kind of weird because you have that awkward transition from the 2D animation to the 3D animation. It just doesn't really work. Both of the animations look great, don't get me wrong. They just don't really work together all that well in this kind of environment. It just didn't really work. It was kind of awkward, but it wasn't like a complete movie bring down like some people said. Like some people will say that ruined the movie. If it would have just stayed 2D animation, this would have been good. But since it got out of the water, it sucks. Nah, it does not suck because they came out of the water. It's still an enjoyable movie, still an enjoyable experience despite that. But it was weird. I will say that. It was weird, and I would have preferred it to just be 2D animation and just go in that route. Or just pick one or the other. But whatever. Also, like, it has some references to older SpongeBob episodes from seasons 1 to 3. But they're subtle. They aren't forced or anything. Like, hey guys, remember SpongeBob when it was good? Here you go. It wasn't like that. It did those nice little nods to those old classic SpongeBob episodes in there, but it wasn't overly abundant to the point where it was like, really? You're trying to get people to feel nostalgic, all right? It wasn't to that point. The plot was a little rocky, I will say. It wasn't very stable. It kind of went all over the place, but I think a part of that is kind of a part of SpongeBob's humor, but not entirely. The plot was a little rocky. All right. The plot was a little rocky. But overall, I would say this was a great movie, honestly. I'd say this was a great movie. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Really. I'd give it a 7. This gets a 7. If you like SpongeBob, check it out. If you don't like SpongeBob, check it out. No, if you don't like SpongeBob, do not check it out. Because you would hate this movie if you do not like SpongeBob. But if you like SpongeBob, you're going to like it. All right, next up, we got this movie's hilarious, Wayne's World. I'm gonna be for real. I went to this movie thinking it was gonna suck, but I was wrong. All right, because I was wrong about what this movie was going to achieve. It's silly and it's over the top. It's campy. It's ridiculous, but it's aware. It's aware of that. It's not those things by accident. It's those things on purpose. All right, it's completely aware and it utilizes those things to its full advantage, and it makes for a fun experience. Wayne and Garth, the main characters you see there on the poster there, they're really funny. They're really goofy characters that you just can't help but laugh at almost everything they say because it's just so silly. They are a blast to watch, really. They're one of the highlights of this movie, I think, are Wayne and Garth. They're ridiculous. I love it. This was an extremely entertaining movie. I'm trying to think. Are there boring moments? No. I don't think there's any boring moments in this movie. Even the weak moments in this movie are entertaining. Because, like I said, it's aware of what it's doing. So, it's not taking itself too seriously, obviously. It's a comedy movie. It's extremely memorable. Yeah, that's one thing. It's extremely memorable. I mean, after seeing this movie, I went back to watch the old school SNL sketches because I wanted to see more of these characters because they're such a joy to watch. It's memorable. And those quotes and those moments will stick in your head. There's scenes from here that are just hilarious. Like that sign that they point to, "No Stairway to Heaven." That's iconic. That's hilarious. I've seen guitar stores actually have those in their store as a reference to Wayne's World, which I love. But this also has the same fault as the SpongeBob movie. It has a little bit of a rocky plot as well, but it's not bad because, like I said, it's aware of what it's doing, so you can't really get too mad at its faults, but you still got to be aware of them. So overall, I'd say this is a good movie. 6 out of 10. It's a 6 out of 10. It's a fun movie. I'll say that. It's a fun movie to watch. If you're looking for just a dumb movie to sit with your friends with and just laugh your heads off about, then definitely check out this movie. All right, Wayne's World. That's all my notes. I did not have time to write too many notes for the stream, but I'm not going to end the stream. I'm not going to end the stream because it's only 30 minutes long right now, and that would just be a ridiculously short stream. So I'm just going to do it like I did in the old school days for the rest of the stream and just talk about the movie with my thoughts right off the top of my head. Why not? But I did have this movie because I asked my dad. I was like, yo, what's... like, I was getting a water before coming in and doing the stream. I was like, yo, what's a movie I can talk about? He said, just talk about Jurassic Park. And I was like, okay, I didn't have time to write down any notes about it, but I did have time to get the picture. So let's pop that up. Jurassic Park. This is one of the most iconic movies in the 90s. You can't deny that. This movie is an absolute classic. It is insanely impactful to pop culture and general public, I guess. Well, not the world. It's not like so influential as an influencing world, but yes, it is insanely influential to pop culture and also film too. I think my favorite thing about these movies is the practical effects. That, in fact, when I think of practical effects, I immediately think of Jurassic Park because the practical effects in this movie are lovely. They're impressive, and I do really like practical effects. And yes, I'm one of those guys that prefer practical effects over CGI. But hey, that's only because practical effects are just insanely impressive, take a ton of work to do, and just look really good too. Practical effects are an art, all right, and they're great to watch. That is my favorite aspect of this movie, is the practical effects. And it also has a simple plot too. They go to a park where dinosaurs are brought back, but they run with that plot perfectly and makes for a very enjoyable and action-packed movie throughout. So, yeah, Jurassic Park. What would I give this movie? I gotta think of a score since I didn't write any notes. I'd probably give it a 10, honestly, just because of its impact. And also, as a film, it is really good too. So, hell, I'll give it a 10. 10 out of 10. Well, maybe a 9. Yeah, I'll give it a 9. Hell, 9 out of 10. I don't know, 9 to 10, somewhere around that range. That's what I'll give this movie. However, Jurassic World sucks. The first Jurassic World's all right, but the second one, yeah. Man, oof. All right, Jurassic Park guy here. Now I gotta think of some movies to talk about. 10's too much. I didn't give too many 10s, did I? I gave two 10s. So this is my third 10, but yeah, that's not too many 10s. Let's see. What's the movies that you think I should talk about? Like, throw out some recs out there, and if I've seen it, then I will definitely talk about it. So the 5 people that are watching, contribute, put some stuff in the chat there, and I will. If I've seen the movie, then I will talk about it. Have you seen Austin Powers? Oh, I have seen Austin Powers, but it's been a really long time. But hell, I'm gonna talk about it. Let me get a picture to put up here, just so I can stay consistent with that. Austin Powers. Ah, crap. Which one did I see? I can't remember. I think it was International Man of Mystery. Yeah, I watched the first installment, so yeah, I did. Austin Powers. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. Well, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, so I'm not going to give some crazy thoughts on it, alright? But I will say that this movie was a fun watch. You know, Mike Myers delivers a very funny performance here, and it does a great job at parodying James Bond's, typical elements really well, and it's fun to watch. Especially as a James Bond fan, this was even more entertaining to watch because I get all the little things they're doing to nod to James Bond. Also, the Dr. Evil guy, so Minion, that's hysterical. I love that stuff. That is just classic. It was iconic. What would I give this movie? I gotta think. What would be my score on Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery? Probably I'd give it a 7 out of 10, probably. It's a funny parody, enjoyable. So yeah, 7 out of 10. What is a movie that I can watch over and over again? That's a good question. There is a lot of movies I can watch over and over again, but I gotta think. I know one of them is Back to the Future. Back to the Future is movies that I can watch over and over again. The entire trilogy, all 3 of the movies, Back to the Future 1, 2, 3. All of them I can watch over and over again. They just never get old because there's so many little details in those movies that just draw me back to the movie. And also Star Wars, of course. You can't go wrong with Star Wars. As you can tell, I love Star Wars. So, I freaking love Star Wars. But the best Star Wars movies, I think everyone can agree, is the original trilogy. I don't think anybody denies that at this point. I think pretty much everyone generally agrees that the original trilogy of Star Wars films are the best. So, that's all I gotta say. The original trilogy, those are classic films. Love it. Those are movies that I can watch it over and over again. And what is some more movies that I can watch over and over again? Well, Indiana Jones. Oh yeah, I can watch Indiana Jones over and over again. All those movies. Yes, even the Crystal Skull. All right, I will argue and I will say that The Crystal Skull was a decent movie. I know people hate that movie, but hey, it was still a fun ride. All right, it's still a fun ride. It wasn't a terrible movie. It really was. It was all right. It was all right, and that part of that might be biased because I loved that movie as a kid. But I don't know. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I was the cutest little Indiana Jones. Oh yeah, I love Indiana Jones so much. I would cosplay as Indiana Jones, just go outside with the whip and just throw it around. I used to pretend to like whip it up and just like swing across things. It was that. That was fun. That was fun. Now I gotta think some more movies to talk about. Well, let me look around my room and see if I get any like pops in my head of a movie I could talk about. Have I talked about Lord of the Rings? Yeah, I've talked about Lord of the Rings. Surely, I mean, these are one of my favorite movies of all time. So, I don't know. The Simpsons movie. Yes, I can talk about the Simpsons movie. Why not? I can't remember too much from this. The Simpsons movie. This is one of those movies where if you're a fan of The Simpsons, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. But I think that it's kind of an obvious statement that if you are a Simpsons fan, you are going to enjoy this movie a lot more. And I did. This was an enjoyable movie. It took a lot of the elements that made The Simpsons so funny and threw them in this movie. Like, it throws this relatable comedy in really well. It throws this over-the-top humor in really well. And it was it was funny. I think that's all I gotta really say about the Simpsons movie. I can't really think of anything else. It's a funny movie. I'm at a loss for words, man. This is what happens when I don't write notes on what to talk about. I just end up saying like a few words to describe the movie, and there you go. But that's literally all I gotta say about the Simpsons movie. It's just a funny movie. There you go. It's funny. That's pretty much all I gotta say. All right, Simpsons movie. Wait, oh crap! I gotta give it a score. I gotta think. I'll give it a 7. Yeah, I'll give it a 7. 7 out of 10. Funny movie. Saddest movie ever. Oh god. You really gonna have me talk about this movie on this stream? Oh god, dude. All right. All right then. Oh no, please. Oh god. Oof. This movie, man. Some of you might already know what I'm talking about. But once I put in this poster, you're gonna know why this movie is so terribly depressing to watch. Like, Jesus. Whew. What a movie. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Hachi. A Dog's Tale. Alright. This was one of the most painful movies to watch. Not because it is bad or anything. I'd say it's a relatively good film. But it is just... It is really painful to watch because this is the only movie that has made me cry for more than 2 minutes. All right, actually more than 2 minutes. When I saw this movie for this first time, I straight up cried for more than 2 minutes. It was an emotionally wrecking movie. Like my mom said, shockingly sad. When I went to this movie, I did not expect to cry as hard as I did, but I really did. This movie hit. A lot of people cried at Titanic. I didn't cry to Titanic. I cried to Hachi's A Dog's Tale. All right. This movie hits you hard, and I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's a good film because I think a film that is able to trigger such strong emotions in the viewer, you know, success. It's a good film. It's just, yeah, it's painful. It's a painful watch. I would I would advise against watching this film, honestly, really, unless you want a truly saddening and emotional experience, then yeah, check this out. What would I give this movie? Ah, crap. I gotta give it a score. Yeah, I'm probably gonna give another 7 out of 10. This one gets a 7 out of 10. It gets... Actually, hell, I'll give it an 8. Because it is able to... It was able to make me cry and trigger such strong emotions in me when I watched it. So that... It's impressive because I usually don't cry to movies. But this one made me bawl my eyes out. So I'll give this one an 8. Congratulations, Hachi. Jeez. Yeah, it's the saddest movie I've ever seen. It is depressing. What other movies would you like me to talk about? Have I talked about Titanic on here? I don't think I have. I'll talk about Titanic. Since I brought it up, why not? Why the hell not? Titanic. This is the movie most people point to when talking about sad movies. Personally, this movie didn't really make me cry, although it did have some emotional moments. Probably the most emotional moment for me in this movie was just taking a step back and realizing that this was a thing that happened. This was a thing that people experienced. People going through these freezing waters, drowning, being wakened from their sleep to this horrible sight of a ship sinking that they thought was unsinkable. You just cannot imagine the thoughts that were going through people's head. That triggered an emotion through me when you just heard the screams of the people when it was sinking. That is what hit me hardest, not really Jack's death. But it personally did not make me cry, but I can see why this movie would make people cry because it is a very hard-hitting movie. This movie is really long. I think it's... How long is it? I gotta look it up. It's 195 minutes. It's a long movie, and it's definitely something you gotta sit and prepare to watch because you're in for a long ride. And despite what people have been throwing at this movie, giving criticisms to this movie, I think it's a great film. I grew up with this movie, watching it over and over again, especially the sinking scenes. Scenes actually I watched over and over and over again. But I do think that Titanic is a great film. I think that I just gotta give huge props. All right, I hold on. What the hell? Okay, James Cameron. I had to make sure I got the name right before I butchered another name, like Steven Spielberg. Oh my god. But anyway, James Cameron did a great job on this movie. Really great job. He did a lot of research into the Titanic sinking. A lot of effort was put into this movie, and and you can see it. You can see the effort shine in this movie. And also the sets. This probably has not the sex, the sets. The sets in this movie is just probably one of the best set work I've ever seen in a movie. And yeah, I'm just going to say that right now. They built the Titanic, man. They pretty much built the Titanic. Not as big as the Titanic, but they built a pretty big Titanic for this movie. And that is insanely impressive, I would say. And that you got to have some respect for that, all right? That's fantastic. Also, another thing is great cinematography in this movie. The camera work, cinematography, great, solid throughout this entire movie. However, the love story is kind of it's kind of cheesy. That's another reason why I didn't really cry at Jack's death, because I just didn't really care about his character that much. But he was an alright character. But Jack and Rose were not real people in the Titanic, so it didn't really hit as hard as the other scenes did. Pretty sure I know this movie scene for scene. Yeah, I watched it a lot. I watched it a whole lot when I was little. Overall, what would I give this movie? I'd give this movie probably a strong 9. Like in the midst of the 9 and the 10 area. It's not perfect because the love story is a little weak, a little but everything else about this movie is pretty much perfect. So, yeah, I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. Titanic. So those are the 2 saddest movies I've ever seen. Only one of those were really sad, like full on sad. Titanic was a sad movie in those moments that I described, but it wasn't as like it wasn't as heart wrenching as Hachi was, because Hachi really did play with your emotions. Like, wow. Selfish old lady throwing that necklace in the water. I know, right? Like, why did you do that? Like, why, bro? Why, Rose? Why would you do that? That's such a terrible decision. We're 48 minutes into the stream, and I'd say that's a pretty good length stream. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. Thank you all for joining onto the stream tonight, hearing me ramble about movies and all that fun stuff. Also, yes, I need to give some quick updates here since I'm here talking to you guys. My Thoughts On will return early. I've already decided that My Thoughts On will return early. The reason why I didn't do it as an announcement is because I don't know when, but it is going to be sooner than usual. And I already got some ideas for this season, and I'm going to throw a poll out probably of what I should do for the first episode. And no, I'm not going to do My Thoughts On coronavirus episode. Alright? I've been suggested that a million times. I'm not going to do it. Alright? But anyways, with that out of the way, My Thoughts On season, 3? Season 3 is coming early. I'm really excited to get that out there for you guys. I'm going to work on it during these times, where I can't really go anywhere. So, I can't work on Dr. Muse. So, it's just like, what the hell? Work on My Thoughts On. Why not? So, yeah. I think that concludes the stream. Thank you all for joining on today. And I will see you guys in my next live stream, which should happen this Friday. I mean, can't really think of anything that would restrict it from happening. So, yeah. I'll see you guys next Friday at 9 o'clock. Peace.